Yes, having been associated with the annual event organized by JASY for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I'm also struggling with this new format. But I guess over the last about 8 to 9 months, many of us have really learned to live in this virtual world. We have developed our own tools and methodologies. And I was really delighted to see that graph where in the virtual platform, we are able to really facilitate these individual and group interactions to a level that is the best that is possible in an environment such as what we live in today. Yeah. So thank you for taking this initiative, and glad to be part of this whole organizing committee. And again, I want to take this opportunity to thank some of the organizing committee members like Adnan, then Rajendra Gaugi, and others who have very, very diligently worked on putting together a wonderful program. I'm sure those of you who participate will really gain from it, because the topics that we are going to talk about are very, very, I would say, topical, because we are emerging out of this pandemic. Hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months, life will remain, kind of come back to a certain level of normalcy. The ones who are going to be really successful are the ones who will really be able to emerge out of this pandemic much stronger, look at what opportunities lie and leverage those opportunities. Yeah. And so this conference is going to be, to a great extent, discussing, what are the ideas that we have and how do we emerge stronger in this post-pandemic world, because the post-pandemic world is going to be very different from the world that we lived in the past before this pandemic started. The way we work is changing. I don't think we will ever revert back to that, original ways of working. So there are going to be a number of changes that are going to happen. Travels for some time is going to be restricted. So we need to also think about how do we connect with customers, how do we position ourselves. So these are all, supply chain is going to be a huge challenge. And most importantly, what are the policy changes that is happening with governments, whether in the country or across the world, is going to be another very, very critical driver on how we emerge out of this successfully. So in that background, I'm just going to talk about a few drivers and dynamics that I see as very important to consider. Now, this is a conference about specialty chemicals, and let's try and define the specialty chemicals first. The specialty chemicals today constitute about 20% of the global chemical industry. And over the last several years, Asia, and to a great extent driven by China, has been driving the growth of this. And while the chemical industry, more than 50% has shifted to Asia, to a great extent, equal or even a larger proportion of the specialty chemicals market has also shifted to Asia, driven by China. And driven by another very important factor. The factor is that, Asia is becoming richer. Per capita GDP of almost every Asian country is increased. Manufacturing in Asia has increased dramatically over the last maybe 10 to 20 years, or maybe even more than that. And all these dynamics have contributed to this shift that has happened with the specialty chemical industries. Besides this, the other very, very important factor when it comes to specialty chemical industry is the value that it has created for shareholders. So as a consequence, in the last about 5 years, there have been a number of transformative acquisitions that have happened across the world, and more than 50% of the M&A transactions of almost $1 billion in value. And the returns from specialty chemical companies have been significantly above the market, not just in India and in many parts of the world. So the Indian market, more specifically, a little bit more fragmented, with very few scale players. It's kind of, in some cases, in some levels, still requires a certain organization. Overall, from a chemicals perspective, India has been a net importer, almost $15 billion of trade deficit coming out of overall chemical, import-export imbalance. However, when you talk specifically about specialty products, then we are actually, we export more in value than we import. So clearly, the market dynamics have already demonstrated that India is best suited for the specialty chemicals, and we have some levers that we can really leverage to be a major player on a global perspective. But if you really introspect to a great extent, what have we leveraged? We have leveraged our abundant manpower. We have leveraged to some extent, technical skills that are available, engineering skills that are available. I believe that we still have not fully leveraged the potential of research and development in the specialty chemical market to cater to the world customers. And I believe that's an area where I think Indian companies will really benefit by focusing on innovation based on research, development, and catering to the global customers. Now, very quickly about some of the trends, and one particular trend, and I'm sure we speak about this more in this particular conference, which is about, the call for sustainability across the world, primarily triggered by the impending climate crisis that we are all starting to recognize in almost every part of the world and almost on a daily basis. Yeah? So the global warming is really pushing for carbon pricing to account for external, negative externalities. Businesses starting to recognize this. 2019, 180 global companies, including the chiefs of Walmart, JP Morgan Chase, pledged that their firm's purpose is no longer to serve the owners alone, but customers, staff, suppliers, and communities too. Basically talking about, a better form of governance, recognizing that there are more stakeholders in a company's purpose than just the shareholders and the owners of the company. World is starting to focus more and more on sustainable products and practices. And this really calls for human ingenuity. And I believe we are at a time when the call on human ingenuity is probably the highest than ever before. So again, I would see that there is an opportunity here to differentiate, making sure that we take the pillars of sustainability, recognizing that it is a journey forward, and applying R&D based innovation to create differentiation. Now we all know, and one of the key drivers has been that China kind of grew very rapidly in the chemical industry, but it also took a very, very severe toll on the environment. And this has led to very stringent environmental regulations. Global players are, after the pandemic and even before the pandemic, have been rethinking about their supply chain strategies, which has been very, very tightly linked to supplies from China. And in the last 12 to 18 months, due to the pandemic and due to different kind of leadership styles, we have seen that protectionism has become a way. I mean, from a flat world, we are slowly turning into a world with walls. These are all factors that we need to consider when we think about a strategy and how to emerge stronger in the post-pandemic world. So summarizing all this, I think there is great opportunity for Indian players. We can even talk very specifically about the opportunities that lie in specific industries. In the agriculture and crop protection, India has always been kind of a leader. We have also been a leader in pharma. I think even in the domestic market, there are significant opportunities that are going to come from consumer durables, which are been growing about 8 to 9%, construction, which is growing at 8-10%, and with further investments that is likely to happen from the government side, I think this is going to see a significant increase even more. The auto industry, which probably 6 months ago was in a bit of a doom and gloom, is starting to come back strong. So I think both domestically and globally, the specialty product industry is going to come back very, very strong. However, I think there are going to be some very specific considerations on how we come out of this stronger. I think there are tailwinds. Over the last decade, Indian chemical players have developed competencies and true global firms have emerged. There is, as I said, huge untapped domestic market. And there is also a huge push from the government for indigenous manufacturing. So I think we need to do our piece in terms of, constantly looking for how do we differentiate, ensuring that when we recognizing chemical industry is an industry that is watched all the time by society and our stakeholders, respecting sustainability and safety, almost on a daily basis, because every time there is an accident, our industry gets a bad name. Regulators start thinking about greater regulations, which is not what we want. Really investing into innovation, leveraging some of the new developments in the digital areas, I believe we can really come out stronger. The other very important thing is I think the government is in a mood to listen, and it would be our collective responsibility to really think about how can government enable this growth industry to really further grow and create an environment we can really leverage the opportunities that are there. So with that, I again thank the organizers for this opportunity to not only chair the a very eminent panel of business leaders to plan this conference, but also this opportunity to really share a few of my thoughts with all of you. I wish this conference a great success, and I hope that participants who have joined here really find this rewarding. And next time when we come back in person, we have a lot more support. And I look forward to actually being with all of you physically the next time we do this. So with that, thank you very much, and back to you, Mitra.